Hello and welcome to the Ferra Film Podcast. Today on the show, I have Ryan Connolly with us today.
Okay, so now we're podcast mode, right?
Yeah, focus.
You fix my beard.
I don't have one.
Yeah, my name is Ryan Connolly. I'm a filmmaker, I guess online personality. I never really know what to call that because it's its own like weird thing. You know, YouTube, it's this because we started back when it just kind of at its infancy. So it's always been a little weird in my mind to like connect those two, like this new medium, which isn't necessarily very new anymore, and the traditional. So, so it's just, filmmaker now to me. It's just, I'm a filmmaker and then I guess an educator, thanks to Film Riot, which my career really kicked off thanks to, doing my show Film Riot, which started back in 2009. And the whole idea is that it's this show that kind of follows my career, my filmmaker journey as I, figure all this crap out, try to figure out how to do this thing, try to figure out how not to be terrible pretty much. Hopefully leading toward feature film, which is getting closer and closer. So hopefully it'll be something where, the show follows from, if you go back to 2009, you can watch where it's just is terrible into, hopefully feature films and kind of like track that whole progression, which is like, geez, I guess we're going on, I think it's we're on 11 years. So we're going on 12 years next year, which is just crazy that it's been that long. We're almost a teenager.
No, man, I'm definitely looking for your feature. Well deserved, honestly. I've been following your journey throughout all your short films. And I remember like when I was in school, like my friends were watching Film Riot and I was like, what is that? And I'm like, I need to subscribe and watch. I've been a big fan, honestly.
That's awesome. Thanks, man. I see the ballistic poster in the back.
Oh, yeah,
Awesome. Appreciate that. That's great. That's so cool to see.
Yeah, so what's your approach with delegation, like, being like role of everything and being charged of everything on set?
So like what's my process with the like how do I go about my delegating? Or
Yeah, what's your approach for it? Yeah.
You have like that hierarchy that's sort of built into filmmaking as a whole. You have like your keys, and I guess the answer kind of depending on what the process is, because even now, Film Riot's really like me and Josh and Emily and Ryan Thompson, who does the VFX, but he's, he's overseas, so he's all remote. So when we're shooting and stuff, it's just me and Josh and sometimes Emily. And so that's that. And then, not long ago, I did a short where it was just a handful of us with no money. And there's that kind of thing. And then, you have like Ballistic, where there's 100 people on set, or, There Comes a Knocking, where there's like, I think we had like 40-ish, 35, 40. Let's say 35. So they're all kind of a little bit different, but whenever there is an actual crew in place, especially people who know their job, have experience, there is that hierarchy that's just built in. So you as a director are really working with the keys. So you wouldn't necessarily go and give too much direct information or direction to like your first AC. You would talk to your cinematographer, and that camera team then together would work as a unified unit. It's not to say that you don't talk to them all. Of course you do. You encourage everybody, you go around your family doing this together. But if I'm going to the first AC and telling him, hey, do this, and then I go to my DP and tell him to do this, now my DP then goes and tells the AC to do the thing that I already told him to do. Now multiple, you know what I'm saying? So you put it into a nice clear line so no one's hearing the same thing twice, or there's nothing confusing. Also, I'm not a cinematographer, thanks to Film Riot and how I've come up, I know a fair amount about cameras. I can talk, that way, but my cinematographer is always going to know 1,000 times more than I do. So he's going to be able to convey what I want in a better way than I ever could. And that goes for every single department. So you're really, conveying what you're wanting to do to that top tier, and then they trickle that down to their team. That way it all stays very cohesive, very understandable. There's no double speak anywhere. It keeps the process really tight and organized, and that's pretty much that. And it's the delegation, and that place it feels less like delegation, because your first AD is really divvying out the delegating. It kind of feels more, like collaborating. You do that constant collaboration of, this is what we're doing. Because by the time you're on set too, it's like, hopefully everybody's on the same page. And now it's just collaborating on here we are, here's the problem, here's what we're doing. And everybody's just kind of, doing their thing, well-oiled machine. When you go down, far in tiers, especially when you go back to like my show. I did a short film called Tell, like way back in the day. It was like one of my first main short films. And it was like me, my cousin who went to film school with me, and then a bunch of people who had no idea how to do film at all. So, but they were awesome enough to spend like every weekend for several weeks, for 16 hours a day, helping us do that. But then it becomes a matter of, people just being awesome enough to be there and learn on the spot and, help you do a thing. And delegating still is key, although you're able to do it less. You have to wear way more hats, but then it's just finding where can I relinquish a thing and how can I get with this person and get them to understand what I'm going to, need from them on the day if they're willing to do it, because at that point, it's like volunteer stuff and you want to make sure everybody feels a part of it and feels, appreciated, which that goes across the board. Like that's in, you're asking about delegating, but even when you're in a position to delegate, one of the most important factors is creating the right tone for the set and, making sure everybody feels appreciated and a part of it. And, that way they're going to take up the charge with you and go along this battle with you. And then when you do delegate, then that stuff is going to be taken and run with 100%. Nobody's going to fight you on it. Whereas, if you go the opposite, people aren't going to really want to rally behind you or rally behind this thing because, they're not super happy. I don't know if that answers the question.
No, that answer. So what is your advice about like getting started?
Getting started specifically as like a director?
Yeah, director, yeah.
Okay. First and foremost, it's just make stuff. As I say it a lot, and it's just very, very true in my perspective, at least, that, and you really hear everybody say it. And I think there's no getting around the need for experience. Because I always say you can know something, but that doesn't mean you understand it. I knew a lot of things about storytelling. I knew a lot of things about filmmaking. I knew a lot of things about directing, but I didn't understand them. It's only through experience that I really started to understand. It's kind of like, certain types of love, right? Like if you've never been married or you've never had a kid, that a parent loves their child more than any other love they've ever felt, but you don't understand it. You know what I mean? Because you don't have the experience of it. And I think that's true across the board in pretty much everything in life, and certainly true for storytelling and filmmaking across the board, cinematography, acting, directing, editing, all of the things. So I think key is trying to build as much experience for yourself as you possibly can. And, be it starting with, I'm actually transferring hard drives right now. Like I have like 1 billion hard drives, as I'm sure we all do. And they're like, especially because I've been at it for so long, I have these old janky, like this isn't too old, but these old, and then you just have tape on it. And this one's not even helpful. It says My Media. What the hell does that mean? What media? Tape on it and you put what's on it. But oftentimes I was lazy and I would just put like 2010. It did a lot of stuff in 2010. What's on here? So anyway, so I'm going through all these drives and I'm bringing them down into one like mega, drive that has a RAID system on it or whatever. And I'm finding all these like old sketch, like pre-film school type stuff. And it just reminds me that, and even after film school, like there was so often that just for the passion of it, just because I wanted to, I would make like 30 seconds something with hardly even any cuts, but there was like a movement in there that I tried and it was fun, or two people fighting for no good reason, but I covered it and I learned something from it. Even doing those things, like it feels like we're at a point now where everyone thinks it needs to be this full-blown short film, because then I put it on YouTube and then I could possibly get a million views and then I'll get noticed and then I'll make a movie. If you're early in your career, no, none of those things are going to happen. None of those things are going to happen. Maybe it gets 1 million views, actually. That's possible. You never know what's going to go viral. But if you're brand new, anybody who watches that is going to see how new you are, and they might take notice, but they'll be like, they have a lot of experience that they need to gain before this is a thing, So I think what's really important is focusing on just trying things, whether that's like a 30-second moment that you just shot and you edited and you sound designed, and then you show someone, and for those 30 seconds where they locked, or they're like, that was really cool, or whether they like, that's kind of dumb, and then here's a minute thing that I just did. I just saw it was like Josh and it's my best friend who's now my brother-in-law, my wife's brother. they're just like chilling in a room, and this is pre-Film Riot, and they're just like, they decide they want an ice cream cone or something, and then one realizes that there's only one left, and then they chase each other down the stairs, and they're fighting all the way until they get the ice cream cone. That's the whole thing. And it was like, it's like a minute long. It's terrible, but I could see like all the things that I was trying. I was messing around with different ideas, different ways of shooting this moment, different ways of covering moving from point A to point B in an action way, using music in a specific place, where the music came in, where the music dropped out. These are all concepts that like you need to wrap your head around, because again, you might know that idea, but it doesn't mean you understand that idea. Like even when I did Tell, there was so much that I did that was like in theory, because I knew, but I didn't fully understand yet. So I was like, I think this will work. It was a lot of instinct, which is great, but I needed the experience to really build that knowledge, which I still feel that way about a billion things. I don't feel like I'll ever not feel that way, but I feel like now I have enough understanding and experience to where I could now go to, that future next step. So I think, when you're first starting out, again, going back to those early things, it's just play. Like, make a 30-second something, make a 10-second something, just do one shot, make a 2-minute short film if you want, make a 5-minute short film if you want, but don't bog yourself down with something that's so hefty when you're not ready for it. Like, be objective. And if you're like, yeah, I've done all these things, I really want to make like a full-blown short now. Because if you make like this 10-15-minute short that takes you 6 months to complete, that's 6 months that you could have made like 10 different things and learned way more than you would have that versus that one short that took you 6 months. You know what I mean? So It's that making a thing and completing a thing, that full cycle that's really going to educate you. And then you just wash, rinse, repeat.
No, yeah, definitely. That's what I do when I look at my old short films. I try to like improve all of them and see the shots I have. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, exactly.
So what's the best way, getting your film out there? I know YouTube's a thing, but is there any other way?
I think, that's a tough one. We're in a very odd place for that. And going back to what I was saying before, I think a lot of people are worried about getting their film out there before it's time to get their film out there. I think there is a lack of objectivity and, self-reflection on a lot of stuff where it's like, this is cool, but you're not ready to really push this out there just yet, So that would be the first thing that I would stress is it might not be time to really try to push your film out there, because it's also like, imagine, Ryan of 2006 trying to push his short film out there. No one would want to watch that. It's not good. And people would just be like, woof. And then, so that's kind of like, a first impression of me, right? To where, even if it's 10 years later, they're like, oh yeah, that's the guy that made that friggin' terrible. You know what I mean? So it's like, I would first stress is it time to worry about that? Because it probably isn't most of the time. Do you need to put more time into the building your experience and whatnot, and make sure you're there first? Then, once you're there, I think, YouTube and Vimeo are great. YouTube is still king for sure. Even when I put stuff on Vimeo, it doesn't really get that many views anymore. Like nobody really, I wish YouTube had Vimeo's quality, because their quality is great. YouTube just compresses the hell out. But, once you put something on YouTube, how are people going to find it? And that's, we're lucky to have the audience. I'm very blessed and thankful for the audience that we have, and that's a massive help, obviously. But there's still some stuff that you could do, and like once your film's done, don't put it online yet. Send it to places like I think Amaletto is one. Short of the Week, Film Shortage, any place like that, and see if they would be down to feature it or help you launch it. If it's a horror film, send it to different horror outlets. Like there's plenty of like Facebook places and stuff like that where that's what they do. They're always looking for content to put up. And that is really useful, because what I've found over time is there are people that do watch short films and they're constantly looking for new talent. And that's really the end game, right? Is you want somebody to see this and be like, hey, let's talk. And so you can take it to a different level. And the way that that's worked for me is by, sending it to, blogs that might be interested in posting the thing, like, like Ballistic. I sent it to places that would maybe be interested in that. And, a place called First Showing posted it, and people saw it because it was on First Showing, not because it had a bunch of views. I actually got contacted by people before it really had it. Like, I think now we're getting close to 2 million views on it, but this was like in the 50,000 view range. And they only saw it because of the publications that posted it. So first I would send it out to those places and see if anybody wanted to host it and put it out. And if those were all no's, then I'd put it out myself. And then maybe even before it launched, it's usually a good idea that before it launches, you put it up, you put it unlisted, you send it to a bunch of places and let them know when it'll be posted. And then, hopefully you give it to them with enough time so they have enough time to find it and decide if they want to make an article on it or not. And, hopefully a place, takes it and runs with it. After that, just send it around to people. That's the best you could do, and cross your fingers. It's always helpful to have a story, with it. Like, Proximity got passed around quite a bit because it was very open that we were going to do a short film called Outsiders, which was this big 6-figure short film that fell through. And then we made this $300 short film instead. So that's a story, right? Like, filmmakers, big budget short film falls through. They make one anyway, but instead of $300,000, they made it for $300. Like, that's a story that people want to run. So if you can wrap, something around that to an extra reason why people want to talk about it, that's going to be massively helpful too. So those are the main 3 things I'd say.
Advice have you received? I know I'm throwing stuff at you.
I think the best advice I've ever received is probably not even advice. I talk about it all the time, but a friend of a friend who is a producer, a friend of mine sent one of my short films to a producer, like way back, like 6 years ago, 5 years ago, something like that. And the producer was like, "This is great, not yet." And I talk about it all the time because it had such an impact on me, and it kind of shaped my thinking quite a bit. And that kicked off like my 5-year plan pretty much, where it was like, not yet, what does that mean? And I had to really think about it. And then it meant, talented, but kind of what I was talking about before, but he needs more experience. Like, he knows, but he doesn't understand. And that really shaped my thinking of like, oh, okay, I see. There's things missing here. There's things I need to shore up. There's talent here, but there isn't quite the precision or craftsmanship that's needed yet. And that will only come with experience. So I started going about doing things that I knew would start pushing me in that direction. And again, not necessarily each thing. Like, we did a 5 short action month, but they weren't really short films. They were scenes of action. And I did them because we did it in partnership with DJI, with like a lot of their products, but I use that as a way to, get some money to be able to go up to Vancouver with this amazing, stunt team and do these action beats. So I could figure out what it's like to work with a stunt team of that caliber. Like, they worked with Spielberg, they worked on More of the Planet of the Apes, all that stuff. So, that checked the box for me. And now I know how long it takes, how to talk to them, how to work with them, what are their pain points, what do they like and don't like, what's helpful, what's not helpful. So that taught me that. And, it's, stuff like that. Some stuff has been short films, like Ballistic was a full blown short film, but then, Sentinel was really about 2 things. One, I wanted to plan nothing. Like, I had a general bullet point of what would happen, but there was no script. There was no shot list. I had like a general idea of this is what will happen generally. And then we went to a location that I saw like one time. And now I had to make up a whole short film on the spot with something that didn't even exist where we were, like this digital, this visual effect, the ship that is going to be a main function of the whole thing later. And now I have to piece all that. So that was another thing that I wanted to, that was about instilling confidence, but also trying that sort of thing. Because, in a larger budget thing, we all know nothing ever goes right. And you have all these moving parts. You need to be able to shift and come up with things. So that was another one. Ballistic, obviously, tons of practical effects, wire work, huge crew. That was one of the main functions of that, was like having 100 people on set level crew day and being the captain of that ship and making sure I could do that, getting the experience behind that. along with a billion other, like Ballistic was a whole nother film school in and of itself. So the Ballistic was a short film too, but like, you know, there's a lot like, I think, man, what's it called? Westworld to Yuma, I think the one's called that we did, where it's like a cowboy thing, but it's not. That was straight up like a sketch, like a overblown Film Riot sketch. It's not really short film, but I got to do like a certain style, and I got to do some westerning type stuff, and there were some effects that I got to play around with. So each thing is going to, you know, add another piece of ammo to your arsenal to build you toward that end thing. So again, it wasn't advice, but I took it as advice. Like that not yet really completely changed the course of how I was going about getting to my end goal, and took me to where I'm at now, and really instilled a lot of objectivity, which just insanely helped.
So, any mistakes you made in the past, and if so, why?
Oh man, all of them.
I just keep throwing questions.
All of the mistakes, every mistake. Man, all of them. So many mistakes, and I think it's, you know, really important to make them. You know, that's how you learn. You know, it's like earlier on, even now, you know, you send a script and you want good feedback, but there's different people that you show stuff to. There's people that you show stuff to, and I want to know, did you like it? Did you not like it? That's basically their function. And then there's people that you send it to, and you're like, you know, feed me, tell me things. And, you know, if there's no critique whatsoever, it's like, well, I don't know what to learn from that. You know, when you get to the point to where you're trying to make a feature, you know, it's a little bit of a different thought process, but certainly early on, you know, I don't know, I can't learn from that. If there's no failure whatsoever, I can't learn from that. I would say the biggest mistake I ever made was being too insecure to bring on collaborators earlier. You know, it took a long time for me to feel secure enough to bring in collaborators to be like, hey, I'm worth working with, you know? So, you know, that probably held me back, you know, 2 years. So if I would have done that sooner, I would have learned from them sooner. And that's really the main thing, is you're coming together to learn from each other. You're lifting each other up. You're going through a process together, and, you know, taking each other to another level. So I would say that's probably the biggest one, but, you know, it's just all of them. I'm every day still making them, you know, like, and every new, you know, step you take, like getting into the feature world, you know, talking to industry folks, you know, trying to, you know, navigate all that, billion mistakes, because you don't know how that world works yet. And you got to figure that out. And it just never stops. There's always something to learn, and always something to do wrong and look a little stupid and then try again.
So what is your process for like pitching a project? Because I know you've been pitching your like feature film.
My process for pursuing a project?
Yeah, like pitching it itself, yeah.
Oh, pitching it. So like pitching a feature film specifically though?
Yeah.
You know, it's obviously, you know, it all starts with an idea. And it can happen in different ways. So, you know, for me, it kicked off with like Ballistic. I put Ballistic out there. People dug it. People wanted to talk to me about turning it into a feature. So I'm talking to a few producers about, oh, what could this feature be? And it wasn't really fully ready, you know, like people are asking me like, hey, what's the feature version? And oh, there's a mistake. Here's a mistake for you. They're like, what's the feature version? I didn't have a feature version like fully. Like there was this world that I was obviously sort of creating, but I didn't really think like, here's the specific feature. Like I had ideas and things I wanted to mess around with, and things I thought it could be, but not like oh, here's the feature version. And that was a mistake. And that, you know, lost me a few opportunities where I was able to chat with some pretty awesome producers, but they're like, okay, so what's the feature? And I'm like, you know, and thankfully I was able to connect with 3 Arts and you know, they became my managers, and they really helped me figure that out and navigate that. And they connected me with some writers that, you know, helped me build that out even more. And then we came up with this whole pitch, and which I think is awesome still, and still want to try to make at some point. But we realized like this is pretty expensive, you know? So, you know, we put that on the back burner, and then I told them about this other idea, There Comes a Knocking, and they really dug that. So I was already working. I had like I think it was like a 50-page script. So it was like a treatment / script, you know, had a baby. I've talked about that on the show too. You know, I got the idea from James Cameron, who did it for a Spider-Man film. And they really responded to it, dug it. So I fleshed out the rest of the script, and that was an awesome process because it was the first feature I've ever written, and their story sense, that's what so far, like, one of the greatest things about having really amazing managers, which I've lucked out, these, Luke and Will are incredible, is they have tremendous story sense. So they were able to, help me through the process of me sending them ideas, me sending them drafts, and then giving me feedback, and me being like, I think they're wrong. And then I think about it, I'm like, damn it, they're right. And it really helped evolve it into a pretty, a place that I'm really, really excited about, a place I don't think I would have gotten to without them. So that collaboration was amazing and taught me a ton about storytelling. A lot of understanding, started to seep in thanks to that, the knowing versus understanding thing. So then after the script was done, then we decided, it's been like forever since I did a horror film. Tell was the last one I did. Other than that, there were like comedic bits, so it wasn't really a horror film. So I was like, yeah, we need to shoot something to show, not to have like a proof of concept in of like, oh, you want to make this here, but really just to show that I can direct horror. So I did the There Comes a Knocking short film. Once that was done, we packaged that with the script, with like a little pitch deck, a log line, and then sent that around. And again, what's great about having really good managers is they have really good relationships with a lot of places. So they already have those, connections, and they're like, hey, check this out, client of mine, and they will. And if they dig it, they'll want to talk to you. So then that led to a lot of meetings, and, I learned my lesson with Ballistic, and I had to relearn it a little bit with my first meeting. So, after my first meeting, I wasn't quite ready to pitch other things, because often people are like, dig this, what else you got? And, after that, I pieced together a bunch of ideas, and I was able to pitch, kind of not fully fleshed out ideas, but enough pitch worthy ideas. Like, here's the concept, here's the characters, here's what it's about, here's why I'm excited. And then, the process of that allowed me to see what people were kind of looking for. So then that lets you look into your shoebox of ideas and be like, this fits it. This fits. I bet you people will respond to this. And it kind of helps you, like, once you start seeing and there's like obviously a diverse, thought process on what people are looking for, of course. But as far as, the types of things I do and the types of places I would love to do business with, you look at the ideas that you have, and then you start fleshing those out. So then it's just about that, take that, figure out, here's the concept. This is cool. There's a log line to it, tells a little bit of a harder pitch because it's more emotional. It's more thematic. It's not like a one log line. Oh, I see the trailer, high concept piece. So it's a little bit harder of a sell. Whereas if you have a concept, like I always talk about Lights Out, obviously, because, that's the most recent that everybody can see that immediate, like, oh, I get what you're saying. But, David had this great little, concept, super simple. That's incredibly sellable, obviously. And, so if you can come up with that concept, that hook, and then you build on top of that, like, okay, well, who is it about? And that's what's really, most important to really everyone, because it's a business, right? So it's got to be something that they know that they can get butts in seats with. That's the log line. That's the hook. That's the concept. But we're all filmmakers and storytellers. So even the people that they're worried about that concept and that hook because they know they got to be able to make money off of it, really what they're most excited about and what's going to hook them most is the character, the theme, the story. So it has to have both of those things. So you developing those two things and you get excited about it. And then I've been making visual treatments, where it's not just a treatment. Like you see a lot of treatments where it's just black letters on a white page. I do something that it's more like a graphic novel in a way, not really, but kind of, and that kind of conveys it a lot more. And then, you send those out, you have conversations, and you kind of go from there.
So what is your advice for getting your first piece of film, and what steps can help you? I know you said like a proof of concept can help, get visualized like what you're trying to receive.
Well, I mean, honestly, I haven't made one.
Yeah.
I'm getting closer and closer. There's some stuff developing, legitimately developing, but it hasn't been made. Until you're on set, from what I know and from the friends I have and the experience I have so far, nothing's sure. So that's the thing that I'm still figuring out, still building my understanding in that world. But really, the main key for me to get to the point to where I'm at, where I'm, developing with some places, is everything that came before it, you have to be a confident filmmaker, and not confident in terms of I'm not insecure about myself, but confident in terms of craft. Like Scott Glassgold says, operating on, a level of talent, meaning this is a competent filmmaker. This is an experienced film. This is somebody who knows what they're doing, knows how to craft this piece, knows how to elicit a response from an audience, has a point of view, has a voice. This is their voice. They're not ripping someone else off, and that all comes from experience. And that was all a major factor of why I never chased features for 2018. Because I didn't feel I was really fully ready yet. And then, like I said before, that whole, not yet really, honed me in on that. So it was very much about getting myself to the place where I say it all the time. Like I wanted to be able to look somebody in the eyes and say, you can bet on me. And, no, I'm not BSing, because I mean, no matter what, it's a gamble. If somebody's going to give you a shot at it, it's a gamble. Even the best filmmakers alive gamble every time they make a movie. Some of them have had flops, and they're like incredible. So it's not, it could go either way. So, it's always a gamble to chuck that much money, millions of dollars at something and trust somebody with. So really, like, the main thing was getting myself to the point where I could become, somebody that was worth a studio's time. Then it was about, crafting an exciting piece, a piece that would show off what I could do, what I could wrangle, that had a cool concept, a cool hook, ballistic, a lot of my films very purposefully are, ambiguous. They're not, I'm not spelling everything out. There's a world there, and it kind of leaves you being like, wait, what? Like hopefully you had a fun ride and you're like, oh, okay, I get what was going on here. This girl, and they were chasing her and her mother, and that's what drove her forward, and all the theme is there, and you could really, pull back layers if you really wanted to look at it. I infuse all that theme in there, but there's so much about the world that I just did not tell you. And the reason is for what it ends up eliciting, if you're lucky, is a producer gets in touch with me and then is like, what is this? I want to know more. If you dot every I and cross every T, then it's like, oh, I saw it, moving on. Oh, it's just a short film. It's all packaged up in one short film and it's done. This is my perspective. There's obviously people who have done that and it worked out really well. But for the most part, every short film that I know of, off the top of my head at least, that converted to a feature successfully so was vague, or a moment, or look at Lights Out, look at what became District 9, look at the Saw short film, look at what's that other one? Look, even Whiplash, they just took a scene right from the feature and just shot that. Just to show that he could. So for me, it's like, making that stuff too, the kind of proof of concept of not just a story idea, but a proof of concept of you as a filmmaker. So it's like getting you to the point to where you could make those proof of concepts, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So what is your writing process for a script and getting started? I know you said like in a whole episode, but
yeah, we did an episode that kind of dove into that, and I did it because Film Riot's kind of that, like, whatever I'm figuring out at the time, I try to make episodes about, and that's been a huge part of my process of lately, is writing and getting into writing something, not necessarily writing like a full feature right off the bat, but really just building out treatments, building out pitches and stuff like that. So getting into that process of how do you get there, and it was kind of difficult, and I went through a bunch of different things, and I still kind of shifted up over and over, but it's really like, you come up with the kernel of an idea and you write it down, and then you come up with another one, you write that one down, and then you write another one, and then eventually one of them kind of sticks with you. All of a sudden you're coming up with more and more ideas for it, and then I just start writing those down, basically just idea vomit, like whatever comes to my head, a moment, a character, a dialogue line, whatever, I just write that down. And that's usually probably like in Evernote. I love doing it. I put everything into different compartments. So I like different apps for different things. So in Evernote, I'll do that, like my idea dumps, then I'll start researching, depending on what it is. I pretty much research with everything, because for me, I find if I'm stuck, I research, something sparks, or even just researching will take me in a different direction, or a more honest direction than I was going otherwise, or will keep me from doing something that was a little too done before. And so then research will go in there, and then I'll make my research doc inside of Evernote, and I'll go crazy with that. And then once I have enough, then I'll start building out the beats of my story, the main milestones of my story. You know, how does it open? You know, what's the turn in Act 2? What's the midpoint? What's the turn in the 3? What's the, you know, how does it end? Then I'll start doing all that. And Save the Cat has kind of I think it's 15 or 18 beats. I can't remember, but it has a good like thought process. I don't really follow it like religiously, but like often in the beginning, I'll fill that out. Like, can I fill that out? And then, you know, I'll try to. And then, you know, after that's done, then I just stop thinking about it. But those are like the building blocks, the skeletons of before I ever open a script. Then after that, once I have all those bones collected, I'll do like a scriptment of some kind, something super, you know, simple, you know, write scenes that I feel inspired to write, completely skip scenes that I don't like. She talks to her mom here about this and her mom's mad. And in the end, she feels bad, you know, just as simple as that, and move to the next scene. So I don't allow myself to get stuck anywhere. I know generally something, even if I don't have the scene, I know generally we need 2 more scenes here. And basically these 2 scenes will accomplish this. No idea where they'll take place or how this will work, but they need to accomplish this. And then I move on, you know, that way you never get stuck. You can go back and add those things. So then, you know, I go all the way through with that. Like with There Comes a Knocking, that turned into a 50-page scriptment. And now you have this document, this 50-page document that's like, I'm half done, you know, and all of a sudden it feels less daunting. And then you go back and you start filling in things, and you keep filling in and filling in and filling in and trying and changing. And the next thing you know, you're like, oh my God, I have a full script. So that process has worked really well for me. Recently, I've been using this app called Milanote. We're going to do an episode on it soon, but it's really cool. It's like, you know, you build it inside of this, you know, board, and it's almost like a digital cork board, and you can move things around. You can put images in it. And it's really cool. I've really been loving it for building out concepts and stuff, especially when collaborating. I'm collaborating with some people on several different things right now, and using something like this, especially where it's visual, it's not just bullet points. You can really build it out. Super, super helpful. So just those things, like, you know, it's kind of, for me, it's like collecting the paint and the paint brushes before you start painting, you know? And that's been really, really helpful. Just sitting, I know a lot of writers will just sit down and start writing. That's just not, it doesn't work for me. I get discouraged. I get lost. And it's just like, I don't even know which way is up anymore. And then I end up stopping.
So what has been the biggest challenge for you and how you overcome it?
Biggest challenge, man. I feel like everything is biggest challenge.
Honestly, it's so true.
Especially like when you're making the film, it just feels like every single thing is the end of the world. You know?
Yeah.
It's so hard. The biggest challenge, you know, I think it's just been each new hurdle. You know, it feels like I have no idea how to go to this next level, but then all of a sudden you're at it. You're like, how did that happen? And then I don't know how to get to and then all of a sudden it does. And you're like, wait, what? You know? So it always feels like whatever the next massive challenge hurdle is actually getting to the feature film and finishing it. And then it'll be, you know, it being good. And then it'll be getting to the next one, you know, like I feel like it always feels like there's an insurmountable task in front of you, you know, filmmaking wise, like at all times. But, you know, certainly in the beginning, getting people to believe in you is so difficult. To rally a team around you is so difficult. And it took me, you know, this long. You know, Film Riot was years and years and years into it before I really started, you know, building a network of people that was like-minded, and we were helping each other. And I think a big part of that is, you know, do for others, and eventually, you know, creating a community where you really are helping each other and wanting to help other filmmakers succeed, and then they'll help you. And so I think that was definitely early on one of the hardest things for me, is just finding a network and even just figuring out what the hell to do next, you know, because I mean, now there's a billion YouTube videos to give you like advice, you know, but in the early days for me, pre-Film Riot, that just didn't exist. That's one of the reasons I wanted to do Film Riot, because there was nothing like that. So it was all just like throwing darts in the dark, frustratingly so. So that was probably the most difficult. But honestly, I just feel like every next stage feels like the most like, what? You know what? I would say finishing my first script was the biggest challenge. And it took me to having 2 managers who were on top of me and being like, finish it, you know, for me to actually finish a feature for the first time. I mean, you know, I was 37 years old when I finally finished my first feature-length screenplay. So I would say probably that. If I had to pick one, I would say that.
Okay. So describe how you ensure the production stays on schedule and what steps will you take?
The first AD is key for that. Like having someone who's dedicated to that. Like even if in the early stages, I would have somebody like Ashley would always, super organized, kick butts when need be, super nice the rest of the time, that's the first AD. And she didn't know how to do it, but she knew how to keep on track of a schedule of like, hey, we're this far behind compared to the document you gave me. And I think, it's just, I've always, operated by, you're the head and how you go, everyone else does as well. If you're sitting around and being lazy, so will everyone else. If you're up and moving and working and then in the midst of it all and, hey, can I help you? And hey, let's push forward and hey, let's go, other people will too. And people will rally behind that. So, lead by example is a huge thing for me. And, kindness, make it fun, keep people, wanting to do this, give ownership, let everyone feel like, hey, this is a film that we're making together. In the end, we are going to be excited about our film, not, hey, you get to be here and make my film with me. Like, I hate that auteur theory nonsense. Like, no one makes a film by themselves. There's no such thing as an auteur. There has never been such a thing as an auteur, unless literally you're the one shooting everything. No one else is there but you. It doesn't exist. The actors are lending their voice to it. The composer, the editor, the colorist, the first AC, everyone is doing the dolly grip is operating the dolly. He's playing his instrument, it's all those performers coming together that, does it. Is like, isn't, the conductor of an orchestra, is he an auteur? Even if he wrote the thing, no, he wrote it, but you have all these performers performing it, and he can't do it himself or she can't do it herself. So, it's, bringing that together is actually a massive function, I think, of creating, a mechanism that's operating on all cylinders, firing on all those cylinders, because it's everybody who wants to be there, who wants the thing to succeed, who wants us to succeed, not you to succeed, us to succeed, to put this thing out to be like, look what we did, and because that's the truth too, but if you can create that atmosphere, especially early on when people are doing it for favors, there's no money, everybody's just doing it out of passion, that's really, really key, but it's always key.
Who is your favorite directors?
Oh man, that's it. That always makes me blank. Obviously Spielberg.
Yes, obviously.
Spielberg is God.
Yeah.
I don't think there's ever been anybody like him, and I don't know that there ever will be again. It's just he's unbelievable. Like even just to producing, but like the vast like variety of types of films that he's done. How many times he's changed cinema single-handedly, pretty much. Like he created his film created the blockbuster. It's just crazy. It's just crazy. How many iconic films are under his? It's just nuts. So Spielberg is definitely my number one. David Fincher, I think is an absolute genius. Scorsese, George Miller, Alfred Hitchcock, of course. Man, totally blank now. I'm gonna be so mad at myself for not thinking of them. I need to just keep a list of people.
Just keep like a bullet list.
This one. Recently, I've been loving Ari Aster and Robert Eggers, and the stuff they're putting out. The Safdie brothers are amazing. Catherine Bigelow, I think, is absolutely brilliant. The way that she constructs chaos, I think, is unmatched. Like if you look at Zero Dark 30 and Detroit, damn, like that, she can build tension in a way I don't know that I felt from anyone else. Like it's so like real, like just you're there and your gut's turning. Anyway, she's amazing. Yeah, that off the top of my head, those would be some of my favorites for sure. And I would definitely say, like, style wise, especially like recently, Catherine Bigelow, Steven Spielberg, and Fincher and Hitchcock, I would say are really like the stew that makes me, and certainly their films end up in my pitch decks and whatnot the most for sure. So yeah, those.
So when did you exactly get started as a filmmaker?
Professionally?
just like from the very beginning, like when you realized you want to be a filmmaker?
I say this all the time. It almost feels rehearsed now because I say it so much. But my mom says 6, and my daughter's about to turn 5, and that is so young. So for me, it feels like I don't know if I was 6. That's like pretty young. But so I just say 8. But it was right around 8 years old. My dad brought home like a VHS camcorder. It was the first camera I'd ever seen. I picked it up and started making my own short films. Well, really, you couldn't really call them short film sketches. That's kind of where us calling them sketches for Film Riot came from. I always used to make those when I was a kid. It wasn't really a short film with the full story. It was just kind of a moment where I'm trying to like engage you, make you laugh, make you lean forward, whatever. And obviously they were all horrendous. I found a couple recently. I might release some of them. I think maybe like if I could get that first feature done, man, I might put some of these old garbage short films in like the special features. That would be amazing. Yeah, I was probably right around 8, and then whenever I could convince my brothers and sisters to be in front of the camera, I would. Otherwise, it was me propping the camera up on something and me being the director and the actor at the same time, oftentimes acting with myself. Do forced perspective, stuff like that. Movie Magic came out on Discovery Channel. That was my film school. Like they showed how, they were doing, all these insane things that seemed like magic to me as a kid, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh my god, this is craftsmanship. There's somebody putting this together. There's somebody pulling the strings here, and here's how they did it, and here's the thought process behind it. And that's kind of it really shaped Film Riot too, because like I've tried to steer clear. We definitely do button by button stuff, but you'll also notice that there's a lot of times where we don't do button by button. We skip quite a bit because it's about the concepts behind what we're trying to do and accomplish, and not every button. That's why it always bugs me when we get stuff in the comment, because it's like it bothers me, because it's like, man, don't get in your own way, where it's like, yeah, but you had an Alexa camera, you had 30 people on your crew. I was like, so what does that have to do with telling a story? Shoot it with your iPhone and your little sister. That's what I did, except I didn't even have an iPhone. I had a camera that was 1,000 times crappier than an iPhone. And, it's like Movie Magic. I never thought that. Yeah, but they have this. It was about like, oh, that's how they did it. How could I do it with what I have? It taught me forced perspective, things like that. So that really got my brain thinking around the magic trick that is filmmaking. And then I started trying that, make myself disappear, then another frame. And it was all editing inside of the camera until I was editing with VHS. And then, I went to youth group for a while there, and that gave me like a live audience. They let me make videos, and they didn't screen them before we showed them. So I got away with some stuff, man. Like people were doing drugs. There was murder. Like I did some stuff. And the only thing, oddly, all the stuff that I ever did, like there were stoners in it, there was alcohol at times, like people drinking, which I'd get away with it because I'd be like, don't drink. There was like so much violence. I mean, you've seen Film Riot. I've always been this way. So much violence. And the only thing I ever got in trouble for was I showed a pair of underwear. It wasn't even on the person. He just lifted up whitey tighties, and I got in trouble. I'm like, that's what you're mad at me about? But whatever. But that was great because it gave me an audience, and that really trained me, because this is pre-internet video. This is back AOL dial-up days where you have to log in and you hear like, wee! For like 10 minutes. This is probably pre-you, actually, even. You probably didn't even exist yet, which is crazy. Now I feel incredibly old. But having that immediate feedback of like doing a thing, and did they laugh? Did they react? Did this work the way I thought it was going to work? It's kind of that process of, what I was telling you before, is doing something. Did it work? And it was kind of like my first Film Riot, because it was weekly. So I wouldn't always make them weekly, but bi-weekly at least. And so I'd make a thing, show it, make a thing, show it, make a thing, show it. And that helped me figure out like concepts of like how to engage an audience. Like I sucked. It looked terrible, but the idea of pacing and, engagement really started to seed itself, I think, from that. And then I went to film school, and everything after that, pretty much.
Oh yeah, I remember the old short films I did with the old camera, and then pretty much was like me acting, me directing. I remember like my parents had like a old VS camera.
Yeah,
and pretty much it's for like capturing like memories of me and my brother.
Yeah.
But I always wanted to be behind the camera, so it wasn't like
one of those like little VHS-C tapes.
yeah.
I remember those. God, I was so happy when tapes stopped being a thing. Like, because I was still operating with tapes when we started Film Riot. Yes, yeah, we were still doing tapes when we started Film Riot, because I used the XL-H1, and that was like mini HDV tapes, I think they were called. And man, capturing that was so annoying, because if it like messed up, you just had to start over, and it was like you had to just let it play. And then it was such a pain in the ass. I hated it so much.
I know. So what is your favorite thing about directing?
I think, constructing that audience engagement is the thing that excites me the most. Figuring out how to, even if it's in production, I would say it's working with the actors and, problem solving, and when things go wrong, and, me pacing back and forth and putting together a whole new plan, and kind of the stress of it. It's like a drug for me. I think it's weird. I just love working with actors. I'm just so impressed by them, and what they can bring to life in ways I was like, man, you made that sound like music. It's just amazing. And it's all of a sudden this thing that you thought up and you wrote is all of a sudden lived in, and it exists, and they do that. So I love that process. But overall, it is that, constructing that experience for the audience. I love so much, whether it's, figuring out how to get them to the point to where they'll scream or jump or laugh or just be excited or go, oh, that's cool. And figuring out how to give them the experience you want, or a rewarding or exciting experience, even down to like, a really good example I give often is like There Comes a Knocking. The moment you figure out when she's listening to the, I don't know if you saw the short film There Comes a Knocking, but I have that short film There Comes a Knocking. Oh, okay, great. The moment she's listening to like this voicemail on her phone, and then she clicks back, and that hopefully is the moment where everything really fully, and you're either like, okay, that's what I thought, or you're like, oh, he's dead, and it's everything that came before it that's building to that moment. That's not supposed to be a twist, and it's not supposed to be something where you're like, you didn't see coming, but it's slowly seeding these stories in to let you be a part of it. Like the flowers, like just her general demeanor, some of the bits of dialogue, the picture that why is he showing me this picture? Okay, this guy, who is this? And now I know what he looks like. So now he's in your head. And then you hear the voicemail, and oh, he's just on his way home. And then the friend, I'm so sorry to hear about click. She doesn't want to hear that. She clicks back, and it starts playing again. And we see her face, and oh my gosh, she's just sitting here listening to this over and over again, because it's the last shred that she has of him. How often does she even do, you know what I mean? So it's like putting the immediately, hopefully, immediately putting all these things into your head, consciously or subconsciously, that build out the story, that build out the moments, the care for the person, the empathy for the person you're putting in front of them, that makes that character, that moment, that story lived in and honest. Because, hopefully you can not necessarily relate to that as if you lost somebody. Maybe you have and you can, but relate to that just, at a human level. But it also let you be a part of that storytelling, like I didn't just tell you like, hi, her husband's dead. I let you be a part of it. I let you kind of write it with me. At least that's what I'm trying to do, and that really excites me. How can I construct something that brings you along with me, that doesn't necessarily, obviously it tells you a story, so it's a dumb thing to say, but it doesn't like, expressly tell you the story. It engages you. It allows you to experience this story. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of a weird thing to articulate, I think. But that's what excites me most, is just constructing that. Because that's what I've been chasing my whole life. Ever since I saw Jurassic Park in 1993, like that's been the thing that I chase. Like, how do I give somebody this gift? Because that's what that movie did for me. Is like, it didn't tell me a story. It let me be a part of one. Like I was engaged in a way that I was never engaged before in something. Like the way that made me feel, and I felt inside of it. I was terrified for the people I was watching. And so I've been like chasing that idea ever since. And, other movies, of course, have given me that feeling, not quite like Jurassic Park did because I was 11 and I'd never seen anything like it. So it was like, crazy. But yeah, that's definitely what's most exciting.
So what is your favorite Film Riot moment?
Favorite Film Riot moment?
I know this. Just
questions. You got questions. I'm like, oh man, I got to think about this.
For a curveball.
Emily is definitely like on. Like we did this sketch forever. I might have been the first year actually. It was, if it wasn't the first year, it was the second year, where she like is trying to shoot an apple off Josh's head. And that's definitely one of my favorite moments for sure. Yeah, like that one and just everything in between. Like there was a lot of stuff in Florida that was just so much fun. It was a little more carefree back there. There was less moving parts, less, I wasn't as old. I didn't have children. And, like the lightning in a bottle feel that it used to have was super fun, which we still get from time to time. But I'd probably say that one, shooting in the backyard, sweating her balls off, trying to do that short with a 9-year-old, and she was just hilarious and nailing it. It was super funny. So probably that one.
Oh, so here's another one. So what's your favorite movie?
Damn it! That's easy. That's Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
And I always say I'm not saying it's the best movie ever made. I'm saying it's my favorite movie, and I can articulate why it's my favorite movie. And I kind of already did. It was like, that was the movie, and I'm so happy I have it. It's, it's useful to me. But to track back to, that was the moment. Like, I already loved making my sketches, and I already loved like making my little videos and showing my family and trying to make them laugh. But that was the moment that was like, oh, wait, there's a director. That's what I want to do. And who's a Spielberg guy? And, that rapturous feeling, that otherworldly feeling that, literally I was transported. Well, I guess not literally, but I was transported in a way that I never was before. Or I don't think I ever was since, because again, you had that magic of childhood. Everything's massive. And this film that no one had seen anything like it. And then you show it to an 11-year-old. And it just blew my mind. So that has remained my favorite film. And luckily, it's a film that actually is one of the greatest films ever made. So it's like, sweet, that worked out. But yeah, that I've easily Jurassic Park.
No, I would say the same for me also. Honestly, I remember when I first saw it. Yeah, when I was a kid.
Dude, when the T-Rex steps out of the paddock and then roars, it's like, oh.
I know, right?
Or the cast is perfect. It's just so good.
So, what are your plans for the future? It's okay if you can't say, of course, if you can't.
Plans for what?
Like for your future plan. I know you're saying like you have your future film, trying to make your future film.
To make it, hopefully. It's it's such a weird, ever changing thing. Like, especially now. With everything going on, COVID and all that stuff, it's a whole different world. So it's kind of just navigating what is to try to get to the thing. And, I'm not putting all my eggs in one basket. There's not just one feature that I'm trying to push. There's 2 series, several features, a couple comic books, there's several things and a couple other things I can't talk about that might be happening soon. So it's like, doing all those things to hope one sticks, and then you get to do the next one and the next one and the next one. Cause there's a lot of stories I want to tell. There's a lot of ideas I would love to get to. It's just trying to get the first one to work. So, right now it's just keep developing, keep pitching, keep pushing, keep developing the ones that people have responded to try to get it to the point to where, we're taking it. Cause you take it to a thing, you get a production company involved, you develop it with them, and then you get it to the point to where it's ready to take to a studio. And that's when it's like, okay, this is a thing that's happening. And now we're going to announce it. But just because you're developing with a production company doesn't mean anything's going to happen with it. It's not till really you get it set up somewhere to where you're now it's fine. And now they said yes to this budget. And now we're actively doing a thing. So it's really just trying to get to that point, and keep learning, keep learning, keep doing Film Riot, and hopefully, a feature happens sooner than later. I would like to be there before 40. We'll see.
No, yeah, like this whole COVID thing, honestly, is so crazy. Honestly, because I was gonna be a PA for like a film. Yeah, and then I got recently brought back to work. I'm a projectionist for a movie theater, so I control.
Oh, cool.
I control the projectors in the movie.
That's awesome.
So this is the final question. So this is for you. So do you have any questions you want to know about myself or anything?
I kind of asked them in the beginning, so I
Yeah,
don't want to
true.
re-ask my questions. Do I have another one? You're graduating now, or you're
Yeah, so next core is my last core there, so I'm gonna be graduating.
cool? And you want to direct? You said.
Yeah, direct. Yeah,
Have you done any shorts?
yeah. I've done a couple sorts. I did one. I like lost out my passion project that I did. I'm actually gonna have another one come out that I did for school because we had to come up with a whole short film for school.
Awesome, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Just keep making stuff.
Well,
Whatever you can do that's directing. Like even like I worked for Alienware for a bit, and I directed talking head videos. But it was, where's the camera gonna go? How can I make this cooler? Product videos. It's still directing. It's still engaging an audience and listening a response from them because it's marketing. So I would say chase whatever you can. That's in the realm, get into music, all that stuff.
Ryan, I'd like to say thank you so much for coming on. It's an honor to talk to you. It's just so amazing what you've been doing to the filmmaking community, honestly. I know you have the filmmaking challenge, which I'll definitely take a part of.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Awesome, dude.
Well, that is it for the Ferra Film Podcast. I'd like to say, Ryan, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was awesome to get to have a chat with you about filmmaking. And, I definitely learned a lot from this episode. Hope you guys did too. And I'll see you guys in the next podcast.